Hello, everyone. I'm Eric D'Souza, and joining me today is my good friend AJ Devlin as we celebrate his shortlisting of the best crime novel set in Canada for Crime Writers of Canada. How are you today, AJ?
I'm good, Eric. Thank you. How are you?
Oh, I'm good too. Um, I was really happy when I saw your name come up for this award because it meant that you and I could chat. To everyone out there, AJ is actually a really good friend. We call ourselves the pandemic drinking buddies
That's
because we
right.
found creative ways to hang out and stay very socially distanced. And like I froze in your garage a couple of times, but it was still a lot of fun and the only human contact we had other than our family.
Yeah. No, it was awesome that we got to actually spend that time together.
So as I mentioned, AJ is nominated for the Howard Engel Award for Best Crime Novel Set in Canada, sponsored by Charlotte Engel. And a brief bio, AJ grew up in Greater Vancouver before moving to Southern California, where he earned a Bachelor's of Fine Arts in Screenwriting from Chapman University and a Master of Fine Arts in Screenwriting from the American Film Institute. After working as a screenwriter in Hollywood, he moved back home to Port Moody, where he now lives with his wife and two children and his neighbor, Eric D'Souza. Cobra Clutch, the first book in the Hammerhead Jed professional wrestling mystery comedy series, was released in the spring of 2018 and nominated for a Lefty Award for Best Debut Mystery, and he won the 2019 Crime Writers of Canada, at that time, Arthur Ellis Award for Best First Novel. AJ, it's a pleasure to have you. But if I was going to be honest, in 2017, if I was a publisher and you and I weren't friends, and you came to me and tried to pitch me this idea of like, hey, I'm a first time novelist, I've got this wrestler, it's going to be a PI, and there's a missing snake, I probably would have said pass. Fortunately, somebody said okay, but could you tell us that story?
Yeah, well, you'd be in good company because as many people did. It was just one of those things of timing and luck and persistence and perseverance, and I was just very, very fortunate to that I submitted it to New West Press at the time, and then their general manager Matt Bowes, who's still the GM there, he had just taken over as GM, and he had actually been the first reader on Cobra Clutch, and he remembered it. And he grew up, he watched wrestling with his brother, and I think he got what I was trying to do in terms of capture sort of professional wrestling, but also like how there's importance with regards to the West Coast of Canada, and it just sort of clicked or resonated with him, and then he was like, okay, well, let's give this guy a shot, and then he put me in touch with my editor Meryl Destad, and then yeah, it was just once I got going with the team, then it really started coming together, and so I was very, very fortunate, and New West is really great that way, in that they have an emphasis on Western Canadian stories told by Western Canadian authors.
I'd be doing it short too if I said that Hammerhead Jed was just a wrestler. He's quite a complex character. Could you tell us a little bit about him?
Yeah, so he the idea was always, and this is explored in the first book, Cobra Clutch, but the idea was always to have a guy that was just rocketing to the top in professional wrestling, kind of like The Rock and Stone Cold, right before they got to that stratospheric level. And what if a guy was just on his way and then something happened and he just walked away? And so when Cobra Clutch picks up, he's left wrestling behind. He's working as a bouncer. He is not yet a licensed private detective with his father's detective agency. His father's a retired Vancouver police officer, and he's sort of in this limbo. And that's one of the sort of the mini mysteries of the first book, is like what happened to this guy for him to leave something that he loved so much. And so there's a bit of a fair amount of backstory there that carries over throughout the series. And yeah, it's I definitely also really used as inspiration a lot of sort of the behind the scenes documentaries and biographies about professional wrestling in the industry. And there's just such a gold mine. There's so much richness there in terms of how people are drawn to this sports entertainment and what the lifestyle is like. And so I kind of absorbed as much as I could, and then came up with things that I wanted, and then sort of funneled it all into it in Jed, and tried to make them sort of a really complex and three-dimensional and hopefully relatable character.
How do you get the nickname Hammerhead?
His nickname is Hammerhead because he has a penchant for walking to the ring with a 2x4 piece of Western red cedar, and then he would wrestle his match, and then after winning a match, as part of his celebration ceremony, he would crack a beer and drink the beer in the ring and then break the 2x4 over his head. It was weakened. It is show business, so it's a weakened piece of 2x4. But it was also fun to actually just make it Western red cedar, because that was something that actually my grandfather and my uncle were in the lumber business, and so I actually grew up around lumber mills and stuff like that. And Western red cedar was always sort of the gold standard of Western Canadian wood.
I can't take full credit for this, but after reading Rolling Thunder, which is perhaps the lightest and most funniest of all the books, I made a comment sort of that he's too strong. Like the challenges that he saw physically wasn't enough for him. Again, I can't take credit for this, but I know you sort of addressed this in your latest book, 5 Moves of Doom.
No, you should take some credit, because you've always given me fantastic feedback, but that was something that I was already feeling. I was like, man, there's a lot of world building in Rolling Thunder, book 2, and it was a really fun place to take him after Cobra Clutch. But he kind of gets a perfect ending, or a very happy ending, and it is a lighter mystery. And so when it came time to take him into his third case, I definitely wanted to make it his toughest case, not just mentally, but also physically. So he's challenged more in this in 5 Moves of Doom than I would say the other 2 books combined, and that was really exciting and really fun for me to explore and do it, and more importantly, I think, do a deeper dive into sort of his psyche and what makes Hammerhead Jed tick.
Another, I don't know, artistic touch that you've done is, I know the titles, they're all wrestling moves, but there's more to it than just being random wrestling moves. Could you say sort of what you're doing with them?
I mean, hopefully that's the plan. Yeah, like each title of the book is a wrestling move, and wrestling moves have such colorful names. Cobra Clutch is a submission hold, and of course there's a missing snake in the first book. Rolling Thunder is a very aggressive aerial move that's done in the ring, sort of like a forward somersault in the air, and then you backsplash a guy. And then that was at a point where Hammerhead Jed was sort of like, he's 6 months into being a private detective. It's going really well. He's almost a little too overconfident or too good. And then 5 Moves of Doom, that's a sequence of moves that is sometimes used pejoratively, but also it's a sequence of moves that was made famous by wrestlers like Bret Hart and John Cena. And it's kind of it's a way that the wrestler will sort of tell the audience that things are sort of, the match is coming to a crescendo. And also, I just love the name 5 Moves of Doom. Like, Doom is quite ominous, and with this sort of being the grittiest, toughest case for Jed, it felt like a good fit. And then one of the things that was probably really exciting to explore was his identity. He's so defined by his physicality as a pro wrestler PI. In this book, I wanted to explore, if you take away his physicality, if you take away his reliance on his physical strength and his athleticism, what's left? Like, that's, what's really, this guy about? And that's something I wanted to kind of really explore in this one.
Well, the award that you're nominated for, Best Crime Novel Set in Canada, sort of makes me want to ask, does your story have to be set in Canada? He's a wrestler. I mean, I would think it could easily happen in the US, but could you do that?
I think this story, probably more than any other ones, really needs to be set in Vancouver. And I mean, he has a lot of history himself as a character. He's tied to the city. It's but like the places he goes as part of the investigation, he encounters jewel thieves and bodybuilders and eccentric yoga enthusiasts, and so he's really out and about, not just Vancouver but also into Greater Vancouver. So I don't think I would be able to have written this story in another city. I lived in Los Angeles for like 7 years, but I just don't think I could have done the story with the same justice that I feel like it's done here, and by being in Vancouver, and then so it was very important for me to really do that deeper dive with him into the city. And then after, he's got 2 cases under his belt, so he's feeling pretty comfortable as a PI working with his dad. They're established now as sort of premier private investigators in Vancouver, and to just really put him through the ringer in this book, and force him to rely on everything from his knowledge of the city to whatever creativity and mental toughness he might have. Any edge that he could muster up, he sort of needs to get through this book.
Oh, well, that's fantastic. AJ, I know you're a busy guy, but do you have any events coming up soon?
I do. Thank you. Yeah, I have. I'm very excited. I'm doing a New S Press is doing a panel at this year's Calgary Fan Expo comic convention, and that's in a couple of days. And I'm doing that with Neil Howell, author of There Are Wolves Here Too, and Randy Nichols Schroeder of Arctic Smoke, and it's a Writing Beyond Genres panel, which is really cool because we all kind of talk about our genres influences and sort of how we all kind of mash up different things. Like for me, like with Cobra Clutch, I was trying to do like Mickey Spillane with like pro wrestlers and action, and then and Neil does a lot of different things in terms of horror and coming of age, and so it was a really cool idea. And so we're going to be doing that, which is a lot of fun. And then I have another event coming up with yourself and some great friends and local Crime Writers of Canada members for Tri-City Wordsmiths with Iona Wishaw and SM Friedman and DB Carew, also of New S Press, and Winona Kent. And so that's going to be really exciting. It's always fun when we get the gang together.
And you and I are working on something together too. I sometimes forget because it's a few months away. But if you're members of Crime Writers of Canada, you and I are working on a webinar that we're going to talk about perhaps the mixing of humor, which you infuse very well into your stories. So that should be coming up soon too. You and I just have to sit down and work on that.
Well, thank you for your kind words. Yes, and that would be so much fun. You don't have to text or call me more than once. You know that. You're on my favorites list. So Eric D'Souza, I'm like, okay, what's cooking? But that could be a lot of fun for sure.
Great, it will be. So best of luck, AJ, and to everyone watching, thank you.
Thank you.